Hey everybody, Dr. Ducey here, Mtfu Longevity Podcast. I promise you, there will be no technological gaffes or glitches today like I did to my good pal Gino Cacavalli yesterday. I don't know how much cred I lose, but you know what? I always compensate and try to regain the cred somehow. We've got the famous Northeastern / New England East Coast bodybuilder with us today, a guy who inspired me from the age of 15. Skip Robinson, going to start him off in a few seconds. I first saw Skip in probably a 1975 or 6 Muscle Builder magazine, not Muscle and Fitness, because a lot of you youngsters don't understand that there was a little bit of a shifting of the quality of content when it went to, it was still a good magazine, it just wasn't the same. A lot like bodybuilding in the 70s was bodybuilding. Bodybuilding in the 2000s is bodybuilding, but it's just not the same. So the people we talk to on this podcast, they live lives less ordinary. They age, they do not get old, and they all happen to, the portal of entry from where we find them is all via fitness, athletics, bodybuilding. But again, they use those endeavors, those early athletic endeavors to supplement and fortify their health. And again, Skip is 75. I got permission to mention that because why not? But again, I always say if you were my patient, I'd be writing in the chart, the patient appears much younger than stated age. And also, I got to find something new. I've been saying that every time. And also, his chronological age definitely doesn't match his physiologic age, many years younger. And people want to know, they want to know, is there a secret? Is there a pill? Is there an exercise? There really isn't usually. You can still cultivate information here, but it's a lifestyle that we'll talk about. But Skip was a teacher for 37 years? 34 years. 34 years, probably some of his biggest accomplishments, and some of those same students might even show up here today and ask questions. Maybe reveal some stuff that we want to know that Skip doesn't want to tell us. No, we don't do that. We don't do that stuff here. I think some people actually know my address, so we don't go there. But I'm very happy to have him here. Just like I always say, this is doing this. What I do here, it's part of my my longevity business, but it's fun. It's edifying. It teaches people. It puts out great information. And it's like I'm opening up the magazines from my childhood, and I get to talk to all the guys who inspired me. And I'm happy they're all still here. So it's important for us to do these things now. I don't wear a watch. Troy Zucalato doesn't like when I say this because he's a big watch collector. I don't wear a watch because the time is always now. So we get things done now. So Skip, thank you. Thank you for being here. Skip's sitting at his home in Maine on the lake. Lovely, colorful flowers, hummingbirds coming. Look, he's going to show us. See, his boat is called Pumping Iron.
Yes.
Just for a little extra twist.
Yeah.
He's invited me to come up and work out. See, I've got either John DeFendis down in the Shark Tank in South Carolina. That's I don't know if that's an invitation. That's kind of like a foreboding. I don't know what it is. It's kind of a request. Or go, the more lovely confines near the lake up in Maine. Maybe not so quite of a pummeling I'll receive. I don't know. I'll probably do both. Both great guys. I'm better for talking. Skip, thanks for being here, man.
Thank you for inviting me on your show, Doc.
That's my pleasure and honor. Why don't you start us off? Like we always like to do. How did you start, and at what age did you find a rusty dumbbell somewhere, or were you pilloried by bullies, or how did you start? And what year?
65, I believe it was.
1965.
Now, I hate to admit this, and if the ladies listen, this is going to be brutal. But anyway, I cheated on my girlfriend, and
wow.
she caught me. And
how old were you?
25, 26, something like that.
This is when you started training?
Yeah. I did a little in high school, but I hated it. It took too long. I wasn't making any gains,
Really? Wow.
So, anyway, she started going out with somebody else or something like that. And I said, I'm going to show her. Imagine, I cheated, but I'm going to show her. So I went in, and a couple of my friends, we were working out in a garage. That was great in the wintertime. But anyway, I started pumping. And every once in a while I was skydiving at the time, and one of the skydive members was in a band. And I went down a Saturday afternoon after we were jumping, and I walked in and he said, "You look like you're getting bigger." And boy, I'll tell you, that's all it took. And because when I walked out of South Portland High School, I weighed 135.
Wow.
When I got to the Marines, I was like 141, 142. So, genetically, I didn't have it. But here's the thing right now. Guess when I saw that lady again to show her how I did. I never saw her again.
Did she walk into your training studio recently, like 40 years later?
Never saw her again.
Oh, you never saw her again. No. Oh, that's how it works. That's how it works.
You know. So I thank her anyway, wherever she is.
Hey, Skip. Let me ask you. Here's growing up in your household.
Yes.
What was food like? Was nutrition stressed, or was it a good general diet? Or I mean, things were different. Your families actually ate together and whatnot. But how was it growing up? Did you drink a lot of milk and things like that?
I had a great home life. I mean, I had great parents, and sisters. So Lynn and Penny, if you're listening. But anyway, my father was a meat cutter. He made good money, and my mother worked in a shoe factory. And she made good money. So food wasn't a problem. But like Sundays, you had boiled dinners and bologna sandwiches at lunchtime.
Yeah.
Frosted Flakes for breakfast. It was just all of the staples from back in the 50s.
What kind? When you were a kid, like elementary school, junior high, were you like just a slight? You're in 5'7", 5'7", 5'8".
Now I am. I used to be 5'9".
Oh well, you're gonna regret. You're gonna regret.
Yeah, have I ever?
As you go, no matter what you do, there's gonna be less of you. I don't care what anyone says.
Yeah.
But were you slight in build?
All right, 7th grade. I'll never forget. And this is how words hurt. We had this class called guidance class. It was like a health class. And in the 7th grade, we had to get up in the front of your classmates, stand on a scale, and they would measure you and tell you weight.
Wow.
And tell me about it. You wouldn't do that today.
No,
but anyway, I got on the scale, and I was 4'11". This is 7th grade, and I weighed 77 pounds. And of course, everyone laughed, So anyway, and like I said, when I got out of high school, I weighed 132. So genetically, or if anyone had said to me when I walked out of school as a senior in '63, if you're going to have a fairly successful life in bodybuilding, I'd have laughed at them. I mean, they could have said you could be a trumpet player in the Portland Symphony Orchestra, and the chances of that were the same.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that was, you can laugh. That was a joke. So
no, I knew it. No. No, I'm taking it in because it's interesting because like you just intimated, the things that were done and said in schools, and you're an educator back then. I don't know. I think some of them we should return to, but you would never get away with.
No.
I mean, I had a teacher when I was a little kid. It's probably 17. I used to cry all the time. No, I wasn't 17. I was like maybe 5 or 6 years old, and my mother would drop me off, and I would cry, miss my mother. And the teacher would lock me in the closet until I stopped crying. Just close the door, lock it. It was dark. That was it. You had to sit on the floor. And, I don't remember anything bad happening to her. But I'm juxtaposing that when you say that, could you do that now?
Words hurt. That's for sure.
Words pack punch. Yeah. And I do a lot of writing. And sometimes people say, you're looking so deeply into things. I'm like, well, no, I don't think we have enough introspection. Because people say things, they don't even know the message they're delivering, And I think it'd be very potent. It could be carried, somebody can say something to you and you've carried it your entire life. It'll keep you down, it'll push you up, whatever it might be.
Sure motivated me.
Well, so let me ask you, so you went through high school, did you go right to the Marines?
Right, yeah, the summer of '63.
Now, was that Vietnam?
No, I was before. Well, they were there, but I was fortunate I didn't have to go.
Well, I still thank you for your service, and I mean,
thank you.
That's not just a knee jerk thing because listen, you paid your debt. But getting in there, what was your physicality? In other words, body weight. Were you frail? Were you robust? And how was it getting through like the basic training?
I was never frail. I mean, I had a six. I at the Mr. New England in Holyoke, I won best abs, and never did a sit up.
Really?
Yeah, and then the next day I started doing 1,000 a day because I wanted to defend that.
Skip, do you remember Ron Tufel?
Yes, I never met him, but I do know who it is.
Hey, you got a doggy there. Hey. I'll save that for one of my questions later. As far as dogs go.
That's Sophia.
I met Ron Tufel in a gym. I was 15 years old, and he had great abs. Not a very nice guy. And I asked him, I go, "What do you do for abs?" And he said nothing, and he walked away. But that was true because he got a lot of incidental work to his abs, as you understand.
Yeah. Hmm.
Is that what would happen with you? You just had good abs from like push downs and things like that?
I used to get up in the morning. I had this counter in the living room, and I'd get up and make a shake. I had a cat that loved to shake. I had pour a little on the counter, and I'd get up there and I'd do maybe 200 or 300 leg raises. Knees to chest off the end of the bar.
Yes.
Count, and then I'd go to the gym because I was running the university gym at the time.
What university?
University of Southern Maine.
Is that where you went to school?
Yes.
Nice.
And then I would.
Is that where you got your lifetime achievement? You got a big award from one of the schools.
No, in 2013 I was inducted in the Maine Sports Hall of Fame.
That's what it was. Well, congratulations. Yeah. That was great.
No, that's right there. Yes.
Wow, nice.
And then at night I'd go home and do another 100, 200, whatever I needed to make 1,000. And then I remember going out to Goals on one of my trips, and Ken Wallace said to me, "You don't need to do all those." We didn't do cardio back then. And I know John Defender's friend of mine is no advocate for cardio, and I'm not either so much. For the heart, maybe, but I got shredded on just diet, and diets is a big thing.
Hey, Skip, let me ask you a question. With your clients, and we'll get to them later because we want to go through the history. Cardio, right? And I listen. I understand John's premise, and he's had tremendous success.
Yes.
Hundreds and hundreds of champions and winners. But do you still incorporate at least a cardiovascular effect with some of your clients?
You've got to do the cardio, stretching, strength training, and nutrition. It's all part of the fitness. But when a person hires you, they don't want you standing there and wasting. Usually you have them for an hour, and you're not going to stand there while they're doing the treadmill. Because that's usually I'll have them do that before or after, whenever they want to do it or on their own time. And then I give them the exercise programs. And I'm lucky because I've got such a wide variety of clients. I have some bodybuilders, female and male both, and then I have elderly people, younger than I am, but they're still elderly.
Well, Skip. Here's a question: what is the youngest and what is the oldest that you currently have?
Right now, a junior in high school, and the oldest one is a lady, a friend of mine that had knee replacement, and she's I probably shouldn't say, but she's near my age.
Okay. I posted a picture of the oldest woman in our gym today. She's 90.
90.
Yeah. She's I didn't use her name, and she's not on Facebook. I don't think she'd care, but she's there every day, and I go to Powerhouse. It's I don't use this word lightly. It's a hardcore gym.
Yeah, as is too, the fitness factor.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
She doesn't care. She just goes in. She just goes through it. Doesn't worry, and you hope you get that way when you're older. Less things bother you, I guess.
I got a call one time for a lady I can't remember her name, but she said she was 92 years old. And she says, I've got a question for you. And I says, well, what is it? And she goes, how do you breathe when you do a repetition? I said, however you're breathing. I says, just keep it up.
Yeah, just keep breathing. Just keep breathing. It's true. I used to watch when I was younger a lot of the original exercise shows, and I used to think in my head, boy, they sure spend a lot of time on this breathing business. And to me, it was just kind of counterintuitive. It didn't it was too much to make a science out of it.
Yeah.
And when people do those type of things, I always think that they're trying to tell you that you're lacking some secret and they're trying to sell you. So you're probably like me, maybe. The things you did in the 60s and 70s when you were at your apex, you probably still follow the same basic tenets.
In 80s.
Oh, 80s too. No, I know that. But what I'm saying is, the point is, decades have passed and the same rules apply, correct?
Yeah, right. It's funny when I'm training people, whether you're using a stability ball, the Bosu disc, kettlebells, or whatever, it's so fun that I can use terminology that I used back in the 60s, that I heard Arnold and all those guys that, I learned it from them. And I remember one time I was training my daughter, and there were 3 women sitting on a separate benches in front of the mirrors, all doing the Arnold press.
Oh, the Arnold press.
And I thought to myself, I'm the one that brought that back from California to Maine, back in the day, So
we're gonna get into your Arnold stuff from Golds and Ken Waller and Joe Weider and all that great stuff that, when you get older, all you have left are really memories and a lake house and a lake and a boat. But I'm saying, really, all you have are those things that you did and your relationships and how you made people feel. But we'll also talk about your competing around here, because at one time, some of the best bodybuilders in the country came out of the Northeast. That is, a short period of time. But going back to, so growing up, you got more into training in your 20s after the Marines. So when was the first show? You started responding, you realized you had some muscle. How'd you decide on that?
It took me 3 tries to win the Mr. Maine. So genetically, I was behind the 8 ball. But
tell me how so, because that's part of the longevity thing. Genetics. Number one, when you say genetics, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? And how were you encumbered in any way by that as far as slowing you down?
Well, I have a wide waist. I have narrow shoulders. I'm small boned, but I had determination and I worked hard. I genetically gifted people. I just use them for motivation. In the beginning, I didn't understand that about, genetics and things like that. And I can remember asking Arnold one time, how long have you trained? And I think I had trained 2 years longer than him. And I'm saying, Jesus, what's wrong with this picture?
Skip, what year was that? Was he still competing when you asked him that?
Oh, yeah. That was a 74, 75, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was his response to you?
No, he just laughed. I mean, and the first time I was with him, I said, "Will you help me pose?" And he goes,
"No, hold that story. I want to follow a progression, because we're going to dissect that, because it ties into your longevity, and people want to hear that. But let's hear about your first show and your first win. Your first show, you went there. Did you know what to expect? Did anybody help you?
No. Well, I mean, we trained with friends. I was training in my father's basement. I was one of the first millennials. I stayed home till I was 27,
Nice.
So, but I had I worked for my father at Robinson's meat market, and that was an experience in itself, but that's for another time. So the guys I trained with, like Marty Joyce, he was a world champion power lifter, and it was Claude Burgoyne, Norm Vigneault, Bruce Chambers, Don Murdoch, all those guys. And I apologize if I'm forgetting anybody, but we all met at 3 o'clock in the afternoon at my parents' house. And my mother used to go to bed early, so she would eat supper, dinner, whatever, around 5 o'clock. And so the guys would be coming up, crawling over her, and she looked at me and she said, she said, life imprisoment's 20 years. She says, you've been here 27.
Hey, Skip, what was your parent? Because you know the attitude towards people who lifted weights back then.
Yeah.
It wasn't very rosy. We don't have to go in but what did your parents think about you training with weights?
My father tried to get me into it. And then once he saw, he tried to have me do it in high school and stuff like that. And I just wasn't, I wasn't into it, So anyway, my lovely wife is coming out here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I always see her. Tell her I said hi.
Yeah, he said hi. How she says I'm coming across dark.
You might want to go inside.
Yeah, a little bit. It's a little hazy. I can see you.
Yeah, I'll go inside.
Yeah, go ahead. You can. Go ahead. I'll just ramble. Hey, if you guys are out there watching, you really want to ask this gentleman some questions, or just say hello. He's really a really great guy. He's helped so many people over so many years, and he's one of those guys. I always say I'm happy that he's out there and he exists and he's still here. And we get to speak, and always let me know who you want to hear from, because I have lines. I can get a hold of almost anybody and put them on this podcast. And he's back. Hey, that's better. Oh my God, wait a minute. I thought I was talking to somebody different. That's okay. All right, so that's better, Skip.
Okay.
Tell Dolores I said thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Dolores. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Oh, every day is like a holiday over here in Connecticut. Come on now. Okay, so we were saying, continue on. Do you remember the vein we were on just now?
I was on.
No, you're getting ready for your first show, your first year of shaving down.
Oh, I remember. I asked Donald to help me pose to get ready.
This is before your first show.
Yeah.
All right, but let's. I want to demarcate from when you go to California. Let's just talk about the first show, your experience there.
The one that I won, it was at I want to say a middle school. Up on stage, there was one spotlight over a wooden platform with a black backdrop and no music, and there was probably 25 people in the audience. And most of my family.
Yeah. and there was no music, because I caught the last Mike Katz show, 79. I was 15. You go up there, there's no music, and you're hoping people clap, and for me, they didn't for years. and was it like that? No, right? You just went up there and you were at the mercy of the crowd, right?
Yeah. You could hear your mother clapping, and thanks, Ma.
That's great stuff, man. And I've said this many times. You and I both done many things on this planet. I still say one of the hardest things is to go under unforgiving lights with very little clothes on, go like this, and hope you look good enough where people will actually applaud.
Yeah.
A lot of things have to be in alignment for that to happen. But you did win. You did win. So you weren't. How did you do in that first show?
The first show, I got 5th place out of 5 competitors.
Yeah.
When I went up there, Michael, I didn't even have any intention to entering. They talked me into it. I had no idea what a bodybuilding show was.
How far in advance did you know? You never even attended a bodybuilding show?
Yeah, I was on the ride up there.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
And then it's been a long road, Michael.
Yeah.
And then the next year I got 2nd, and then the 3rd year I got 1st.
So there was always fuel for you, and it was exhilarating to a certain degree. You knew, despite the fact that you had wider hips, narrow shoulders, you didn't have a lot of info. We've got a question from a really good member, Steve Unberger. Hey, Steve, how are you? Hey, Skip and Mike, and I'm going to direct this to Skip because you get to hear me bloviate every day. What's your best advice on nutrition as far as everyday meals? And Skip, if Steve, if I'm wrong, let me know. But you're probably intimating as far as like, just for maintaining, maybe not contest diet. Well, Skip, what's a regular panoply of meals for a day for you right now? How do you go about your day eating?
I still wake up in the morning and have oatmeal and one whole egg and some egg whites and fruit. I love blueberries, so almost every day
What time is that? Is it around the same day? Around the same day? Time? I'm sorry.
Yeah, around 4 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah,
now, why do you get up? Now, I do that too, but why do you get up? Is that for clients or is that just your body clock?
No, I'm since this pandemic, I'm big in photography now. I've studied it, and I've been taking sunrise pictures for probably 4 years now. And so I don't know what the sunrise is going to be like. So I just get up, and check it out. And yeah, I used to have clients at 5, and then I stopped, and then I switched to 6 o'clock. So, but since the pandemic, it's been 3 months since I just started going back to the gym, recently.
I'm going to listen. We'll go back to what the rest of your food for the day, but I was planning on taking.
You want me to finish?
No, we'll get to that in a second, but just I want to segue. I was planning on taking 2 months off from training with weights because I've been training 5 years since I started with Evan Centopani, and the goal was go to Italy and pose the Coliseum. Yeah, I was out of. I got injured. I was out of shape. But listen, it turned into 3 months. I went back the past 2 days. It's just open. It's among the worst I've ever felt. Only because when you go stridently from one physicality, 3 months ago I was in great shape. Now. My strength is decreased by. It's just not a good thing to do. The body thrives in regularity. You cannot take away what you're always doing for it. I know you know that.
Yeah.
So your first meal at 4 or 6, we know what those nutrients are. What do you do for the rest of the day? How many meals and what are they?
I usually 5 or 6, and then I have a shake, a protein shake at around 9 o'clock.
Steve just asked us supplement use for Skip. What kind of supplement shake and anything else?
I do. What I take now is I use this powdered supplements, B complex, C, an anti-inflammatory one, and I'll have that calcium. I'll have all that in the morning before I eat. I just stir it up. It's about 5 or 6 ounces, and then I just down that. And then I have my meal. And then as far as supplements go, it's a protein supplement, nothing special, whatever they have at the counter, And usually I'll throw a banana or something in, strawberries maybe. And then at lunchtime.
Skip, I'm sorry, Skip. Would that be right after your workout? Are you a proponent of getting some protein in delivered with a little bit of carbohydrate after your workout, or doesn't matter?
It's usually after. I try to, like, if I can train with a client, that's great. But if not, I have to, if someone cancels or something, then I'll take that hour to train myself, whatever. So it's not as strict, obviously, as what it used to be.
We'll get into it. Well, speaking of the used to be, we'll get into it more, but just kind of like a short answer on this. Does your nutrition, and I know you train differently, you don't have the same physicality, but as far as basics, does your nutrition vary stridently from what you did maybe 40, 35 years ago?
I ate an awful lot of tuna fish back in the day. I can remember I was teaching a math class once, and I said to the kids, I said, let's figure out how many it used to be chicken of the sea, canned in water.
Yes.
And I said, let's try to figure out how many cans of tuna I've had over the past 10 or 15 years,
Yeah. I've done that with chicken.
70s. And if there's metal in that tuna fish, I'm shining on the inside. I know that. But when it was contest time, Ken Waller made my first diet for me. And it was, I want to say egg whites and oatmeal for breakfast. and then a shake, and then lunchtime it was peas and chicken, and then another shake in the afternoon, and then at night peas and chicken again.
Doesn't sound like a lot of carbohydrate. Was that for a contest diet?
Yeah, it was, and there wasn't a lot of carbohydrates back then.
Do you remember feeling? I caught the tail end of that in the 70s.
Yeah.
And as a teenager, I was suffering something called, and you'll know this, orthostatic hypotension, meaning the carbs were because carbs have an affinity for water. The carbs are almost zeroed out. I'm 17 years old, getting up from bed and almost passing out.
Yeah, that was
going goes so low. You're not getting enough delivery. Were you feeling that all the time, like that horrible weakness?
Yes.
Well, so obviously, you're not a proponent of suggesting anything like that for your clients, right?
No. Oh, geez, no. My wife is the nutritionist at the gym.
Right.
So I'm lucky. I'm married to a nutritionist, so I know I'm getting, the good, good diet.
That's great.
She's a proponent of the diabetic type diet, good for the heart too, like that.
Yes. So some of your clients you can take who have clinical issues. I mean, they come to you with diabetes. They have a gluten enteropathy, which is a gluten sensitivity. They have malabsorptive disorder. You can kind of address that a little bit. Maybe you don't step on their doctor's toes, obviously, but you can do that, right? So you don't really have to turn people away as quickly.
No, I always, anyone that has a medical problem has to bring in a note from their physician.
Well, that's smart, right?
Yeah.
Good.
So,
were you throwing down a lot of desiccated liver pills back in the day?
You think? I remember Frank Zane said that he told me he was taking around 300 pills a day.
Yeah.
And I remember I was doing like 150. It's just, we didn't have the knowledge. You either went out to Goals or call somebody, if you're lucky enough to have their phone number.
Frank Zane was one of the first with the amino caplets. He was all about keeping a real tight waist. And I know you know some of this. I've done some work with him, and I've got this from him firsthand. He used to take up to 200. I might be off on the number, but it was a very, very high number of amino acid caplets. So he didn't have to get his protein from food as much. He was eating much less food, so he'd keep his waist tight. But imagine, he had a contest with Arnold once. Who can down the most desiccated liver pills at once? And by putting a mouthful of 70, downing it with milk, and then who knows what, those crazy stories. But again, there weren't as many. When Steve asks supplements, Steve, if you're talking back in the day, there wasn't as much choice. There really wasn't. There was only several things you were doing, right, Skip? You agree?
I think there was only like 5 or 6 supplement companies, and you just get this and put your label on it, So
you had to master your whole foods, just like it. So continue. So you talked about your second meal, and you're doing 4 or 5. So what do you do for the rest of the day on an average day now?
Now, whatever we had for supper the night before, I will have for dinner the next day.
Okay.
So she made some turkey meatloaf last night, and I had, some of that left over. That's what I had for lunch. So
do you guys eat out a lot, or you maybe, out of like 35?
I hardly ever ate out, because back then, like now, you can go and they're pretty health conscious,
Yeah.
They'll cook your steak dry, no salt, no butter, whatever, But back in the day, I used to think that was the trap going out, So after the contest, I'd go out, but at contest time, no. And it seemed like I was always entering contests. So,
well, we're going to go over that. You have a long panoply of many contests that you've done very well in. You're very renowned in this area of the country for that. But John Defendis has with his UltraFit company, he works in tandem with the area restaurants where literally, he's got the UltraFit way of life on the menus. You can go there and not feel bad about. My bodybuilding mentor when I was a kid, I used to ask him, and maybe you tell your clients this now. I says, I'm going to a birthday party. I'm going to a restaurant. He says, his thing was, you know what? Just make sure you get some protein before you go, some clean protein. That'll affect the satiety center in the brainstem, telling you no longer, and you won't eat as much, of the bad stuff, right?
Yeah. And another thing I like to preach too, go the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, you're great. You're right on it.
Yes.
And 20% of the time, if you want to go and have a pizza, a beer, or something like that, you can, you can do it. I mean, these are, your regular people. These are not your diehard competitors that would give up their first bond before they'd go off their diet, so.
That's very important. I use this story a lot, but one of my chiropractic clinics, I had a nutrition practice along with it, and it did very well. But we had this one woman sticks out, and we gave her a program, and her husband came in physically to complain. What are you doing to my family? Everything's in disarray. What do you mean? She was too, OCD is good. There's some utility to it for a certain point, but she was at the scale. And I told her, I don't know, eat 3 ounces of oats. And she was, to get it to 3 ounces, she was doing this with like each flake.
Yeah.
And that's not 80-20. That's kind of insanity, and they're gonna snap. So if a person approaches it like that, they're not in it for. You can't do that for a lifetime. Am I right?
No longevity with that.
No. We've got a very good friend and actually one of the guys on my advisory board, Lance Stranahan. His father was a famous golfer.
Lance, yes.
Yeah, Lance. His father introduced weights to the PGA Tour. I mean, he was one of those.
I heard that.
His father won the British Open. And Lance, if Lance had pursued, I don't like to talk about potential, but look, if anybody dropped everything, dropped all responsibilities, and it was only a bodybuilder and aligned himself with the smartest and the best and the brightest, and even worked in the Weider Research Clinic, the broom closet.
Oh, yeah.
Lance might have been Zane, but he's got a question. Did you ever go out to eat after a contest with Ken Waller? We heard some stories about how much food that guy could put away.
I never went out socially with Ken. I saw him every time, all the time at the gym when I was there. Great guy. But he when he was getting ready for Pump and Iron, I don't know how many weeks out it was or not, but he showed me his abs. I believe it was at World's Gym upstairs. And then like 2 or 3 full weeks later, he showed me his abs, and it really made a big difference. But everybody after contest said, and this, Doc, you pig out. I mean, I entered a Mr. America or Mr. USA, I think, in Caesar's Palace, Las Vegas. It was an NPC one or IFBB, whatever it was back then.
Do you remember the year, Skip?
God, I didn't do very well, so I try to erase that from my.
Those ones you try to forget, right?
But it was a big contest, and I remembered I went in as a middleweight, and I stabbed myself. I even was laying out at the pool at Caesar's Palace drinking black coffee, and it was like 100 degrees, and I ended up. I think I got 11th. And when I went home in, I think 2 weeks, I went up to 214 pounds.
Wow.
I know. Tell me about it. I was huge.
What did you compete? What was your competitive body weight, best weight you can compete at?
Well, my last contest at the Masters America, I weighed 193, 194. But a lot of times it was around low 80s, 182, 183. I think that's when I looked the best.
When did you feel your best and healthiest? Like, what was your best weight that you like to be at? Because I was talking to just the other day. Well, I had Pete Koch on, former NFL player, and he's been in all the movies with Clint Eastwood. Really cool guy. And he said when he played in the NFL, he was 275 to 280. Today he's 240 and he's 58. But for that movie Heartbreak Ridge, he was 300 pounds. And he just didn't, he was getting ready to get rid of that weight because he just didn't feel good.
Yeah.
Did you have any experiences? Like, where was your best number?
When I weighed 214 that time, I think my blood pressure was high. I was sweating. I can remember I was training the Philadelphia Flyers hockey team at the time.
Wow.
In one of the exercises I had them do, they were put the meter stick between their legs, flexibility, and they'd reach out like that. God, it was hard for me to bend down with the meter stick, But the lighter, I think, the lighter you get, the better you feel.
I think that's true. And I think progressing through life, as you get older, the need for food is lessened. The need for sleep is lessened. And I was talking to Evan Centopani, good friend. Saw him in the gym the other day. He's going to be on the show next week. And he's down to 260 right now. He's going in the, it used to be the Night of the Champions. Now they call it the New York Pro. It was in May. COVID, they switched to August. He looks great. I hadn't seen him in a couple of months. He came down from maybe 280. But we were talking yesterday, and I said, and I do it in a good way because I don't want to make it sound like you're too big. I said, Evan, when you're my age, are you going to weigh 280? He's like, absolutely not, because you're not going to see too many guys your age 300.
No,
you're just not. The body, whether it's muscle or fat, because the heart's already beat a billion times. It's going to take a day off, and then what happens.
Oh yeah.
Then you don't wake up. But going back to Lance's, Lance was intimating Waller was known for going out and eating 6 lobsters, 15 hamburgers, and he was really gigantic and strong. And obviously that's called bulking up back in the day. I don't know how healthy that was. Dolores has a statement she made. Your wife, the meals I make for Skip are balanced. If it tastes too good, he is suspicious of what I put in it. LOL.
She's always saying to eat healthy, it doesn't have to taste bad, or plain, like the tuna fish. I mean, my poor kids, when they were growing up, I'd throw a chicken in the a pot, and when the skin fell off it and the meat come off the bones and stuff, we'd eat. It was so plain, back then.
Were your kids, what did they think of your bodybuilding? Did they go to the same school you taught at? They could definitely say my dad's stronger than your dad. I like saying that because it was probably true in most cases. But did they lift weights also? Did they want to be like you? What did they think of it? Because again, bodybuilding was considered kind of weird back then.
Yeah. I'm sure they liked it, and they've all exercised, and they've one of them is a school teacher, Joe, my oldest.
Oh, nice.
And Amanda's a nurse practitioner, so they've done well. And then I had a son, John, who passed away with a drug overdose.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and he had a lot of potential too. But anyway, when
you say potential, you're talking about for training.
Yeah, all my kids have great potential. I don't know whether they got it from their mother.
But don't forget what you said about yourself was you didn't see much genetics in yourself, did you?
But all 3 of them have wide shoulders, narrow waists, and
they do.
Yeah. So
I asked a couple of the top champions. You've seen them all on here, and I consider you one of them. Any of the top guys, and I've asked them all, would you want your kids to go into bodybuilding? And they all pretty much say no. It's only because, I guess it's the drug, things are kind of out of, things are different now. I'll just say things are different. I mean, what do you think of that?
My daughter competed, which was great, but I mean, she didn't have to take any drugs or anything, like that. I would, love to have my, kids do it. I'm always saying to my oldest son, Joe, the school teacher, I'll say, man, you ought to do a physique show, but it would be natural, and
right.
So that's, that's fine. But what
I think the true natural shows, because who knows now.
I know.
But if you're looking at 40s and 50s, when, pretty much, I mean, there's plenty of literature that states there was the SIBA company was offering products to bodybuilders in regular ads in Time magazine since 1940. Who knows? but you had a natural show back then. The best would really stand out. The guys with the best genetics, the wide shoulders, the narrow waists, whereas the guys who didn't have any of that, because it truly was natural. Now, one of the great equalizers, you know, if you do enough stuff, because, you know, there's not a lot of quality now. It's more just who's the biggest. So, you know, maybe you don't want your kids in there. So you were competing on the East Coast. You won the Mr. Maine. Is this when you called Joe Eder and you asked him, would you please bring me out there? Didn't you do that?
No, I entered a contest after that in Boston. It was called, I think, Mr. Boston, YMCA or something like that.
Okay.
And, it was at the Boston YMCA, and I got second to Bruce Lyons. I think he was the captain of the Marines. He won the contest.
Wow.
And this guy come up to me, who I'd never met before, and he said, "You didn't win, but he said, you have the most potential." And he says, "I'd like to have you fly out to California." And I'd never thought of that, of doing that. But I got to be friends with this guy.
And you were a teacher at this point, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And so his name was Ed Connors, the gym architect.
Ed Connors, right?
And without him, I would never have had the success, that I did. So he bought me a plane ticket, and I went with him out to California. And I can remember on the turnpike when I looked or the freeway, and I saw Santa Monica, the sign, big green sign. I was so excited, to be there. And when we got there, it was closed. It was late. It was around 10 o'clock, I think. So I had to go next morning.
Are you talking about the gym?
Yeah, Gold's Gym.
And what year was this, Skip? Your first year out there?
72, 73.
Wow, so that's the absolute best time right there.
Yeah. And I remember the first bodybuilder that I met out there was Dave Draper, the blonde.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
He had the headband on, the long locks and stuff, good guy.
How did he look? How did he strike you when you met him? Like you had never seen him. He actually went to prep school down the street from me here in Connecticut. Very strange because he was from Jersey. But when you first saw him, do you remember your impression?
Well, when I first saw the magazines, I thought it was trick photography. I said, nobody can be this big, So, and remind me about Steve Mihalik, about that story. But anyway, I went when I saw him, I mean, he was like a mythical god. I mean, he was, the long blonde hair, and, he looked great. He did a lot of cable work. I did squats with him one time, but he did a lot of cable work fast, when I was there.
Yeah.
So
are you talking like cable curls, slides for pecs, deltoids, all that?
Yeah, he was doing a lot of work around the pec deck machine, whether it was one arm cable curls or whatever,
Was there? Do you think there was? Because I know to this day, he's in his late 70s now, but even like 10 years ago, his shoulders were so decimated. He's always trained, but he loves training so much. He was kind of forlorn. He's like, I can't even do 15-pound dumbbells. So he still trains his body parts, but he has to really be strategic. And there's just a lot he can't do anymore. Do you think at that point with cables, he was suffering the ill effects of like those heavy 2 1/4 behind the neck presses and all that? Because I know that was like a heavy, the heavy deal back then. Not very orthopedically correct, I will say.
Oh, I can remember. I did 225 pounds behind the neck press once. But I also have an artificial shoulder.
Well, there you go. That's a cause and effect right there.
He was in great shape then. I don't think he was doing the cables because of any injuries or anything like that.
Okay.
No.
All right. So he was the first one you met.
Yeah.
And so where did you stay with Ed? Because I know Ed would like harbor a lot of bodybuilders when they found there.
Yeah. He may be listening. I was hoping I was the first one. And I asked him about a couple months ago, I said, who was the first one? because he said he's had 500 house guests.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and he wants to come up here and stay at my my place, and we had it all planned, but because of the virus, it's been put on hold. But he's always welcome. But anyway, Pete Grimkowski was his first one.
Oh no, kid, Pete.
So I had top 5. I know that.
I had Pete on when I was doing those interviews some years ago, where I was transcribing them and writing them. I did one with you, and Pete was the most forthcoming about, because they exist. We talk about drugs.
Oh yeah.
I mean, epic world level, unbelievable stories, but corroborated by guys like Ed Connors and Wayne D'Amelia, and all these guys said, that's what he did. And Pete is still alive, and he's a builder. So
we went Ed Connors, he and I went to a movie the night before. I don't know what year, 75 Mr. America. I think it's the one Padilla one, whenever that was.
Who?
Padilla, Danny Padilla.
Oh, Danny Padilla. That was 76.
Okay.
76. In New York City. Yes.
Yeah. No, this is the one that was in California, the Shrine Auditorium.
That was 75. I'm sorry. 76 was Menser.
Yeah. In Pete won the tall class, and I think Roger Khaled got the medium class. Correct. The night before, I saw Pete drink a quart of milk, and he ate salted and stuffed popcorn the whole night during the movie.
Pete,
we didn't know, I guess.
We'll get back to you. And I just got to mention this one thing because he's on the record. Pete told me he was living under a bridge, eating, foraging for McDonald's food, training 8 hours a day. Peter Siegel, the hypnotist, was hypnotizing him so he wouldn't feel the pain. He was taking 500 3cc injections of Deca and all these other things, 500 pills a day, and that's what he did. And I don't know how much science was behind it, but that Pete's known for that. He used to write articles in Muscle Builder about anabolics, and it was different back then. But we don't have to go there. We'll go back to. So you were out there with Ed Connors, but you did meet. You met up with a lot of guys. But how did you approach Arnold? Did Arnold approach you? You approached Arnold. How did that work out?
Arnold doesn't approach anyone, not unless it's a female.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, he came in around. I think I was there around 6 or 7 when Draper was there, and I think it was one of those marathon workouts because I wanted to meet everybody, And he came in around. I want to say him and Franco. They always come in around 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. And then we'd go back in the afternoon and come in around 3, 4, 5, between 4 and 5 in the afternoon. So I just waited for him, and I just went up and introduced myself. He was very friendly, very affable, and he said he'd been to Boston or something. He knew where Maine was, so he's come a long way.
Oh yeah, he has. But he did. You asked him about posing, I think, right? But he remarked upon how strong you were. Very strong. Yes.
I held some New England and East Coast records, actually.
Right.
So.
But he saw that you were gunning, but he gave you some advice. He said you had to make up for some deficiencies, perhaps. Was it posing or something else?
When he said, "Show me," he said, "Do a couple poses," and I did. And he looked at me and he said, "Are you paralyzed?" and I go, "What do you mean?" He said, "You're not flexing your legs." So he says,
"Was that true though?"
Yeah, they weren't coming through. So go ahead, get it.
And did he give you any nutrition advice, anything like that, or career advice, or to stick with it, or what shows to go in, anything like that?
He the last time I saw him, and I've mentioned this before, that I was leaving, and he said, he called me over and he said, "Sit down." I can remember it was a red upholstered bench. That shows you how I remember this.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, you're pretty good at powerlifting and bodybuilding. He said, make your choice. And he says, be really good at one. And so I stuck to the bodybuilding, but I always lift heavy. Every chest workout, even up until 96, 97, my last chest workout, I benched 405. And with a pause, you know.
Pause too, wow. Well, you know, Arnold says to this day, he says, you know, one of the number one things he sees with people, it's like flying a plane or, you know, driving a boat, or captaining a boat. If you're going about things rudderlessly, you can be putting a lot of effort into something, but if the goal is not crystal clear, you're never going to get there. So maybe he was telling you that, you know, you're doing this, you're doing that. Yeah. Choose one, focus on it, get it. Is that pretty much what he was saying?
Right. If he just said power lift, I'd have been a power lifter.
You would have.
What he said, I'd have done it.
Well, Skip, you know, is it the way he's pervading the media? Is that pretty much he's the real deal, the real thing? I mean, that's how he is.
Arnold was always good to me. You know, I can never. He come up to Maine when he was going around to every state for the President's Council on Physical Fitness and Sport. And that was the last time I saw, you know, I actually got a chance to talk to him and stuff. But he's witty, you know, he's good with the one-liners. But, you know, I always say, like I said, he was nice to me. So I have nothing but respect for him.
What about Joe Weider? Had some interesting advice for you, did he not?
You mean about the time I wanted to work in his warehouse?
Yeah, tell us about that.
And Paul Grant, he was Mr. Universe from Wales or something like that. He was working in his warehouse, and he said to me, he said, you ought to ask him. And so I asked him, I said, Joe, can I work in your warehouse? And he goes, no. And I was crushed. And he says, I want you just to, he says, I'll pay your way out here and pay you $100 a week. That was back in the early 70s. That was a lot. And that
was good. That was good money.
I had my teacher's pay, you know, so,
right.
He said, if you work in the warehouse, you're going to lose weight. So he said, just come out and train. And then every Monday come out and talk to Rick Wayne, the Muscle and Builder or whatever it was, editor. He said, give him a story. And he said, I'll sign you to an 11-week contract.
11 weeks?
Yeah. And you give him 11 stories.
Oh, and, for the summer, in other words.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Then I used to get all free supplements and, you know, stuff like that. So it was one of the things he asked me, he said, Skip, when I went out to, it was in Shrine Auditorium when I get Best Poser. I can't remember which Mr. America that was. But Russ Werner was sitting in the audience. And his daughter, she was like 18, 19 at the time. When I went out to pose, she says, he looks like Paul Newman. And Joe, yeah. And isn't he much older than me? But anyway, Joe come out back and he told me the story. And he said, Skip, get your Screen Actors Guild card. And I said, yeah. I said, okay. And I never did. And then I saw him another time after that, and he said, did you get your Screen Actors Guild card? And I don't know. I'm happy I did what I did and didn't get it. But
yeah, you know, and you know what, that's not there's a lot to that. That's not an easy thing to do. You don't just go out and get it. You know, we do have a question pertaining to Arnold, one of our good members. They're all good, but Robert Thompson, what's with Arnold disrespecting milk and now promoting vegan? Is he trustworthy? Rumor has it he has a financial interest in pea protein powder. Robert, I'll answer part of that, and maybe Skip will touch upon it. Arnold does have a financial interest in a company called Ladder, Ladder. It's a nutrition company. He was involved with Muscle Farm. I don't believe he is anymore. Supposedly, hello there, Dolores. That's a nice little snapshot there. That's why we
photo bomb.
You live a lovely life with a lovely woman. You know, he does say he's vegan now. Now, listen, remember, he did not win his titles being a vegan. He ate animal proteins. I can't speak much on it. I don't know what he does when he's alone. This is what he's saying. I mean, Skip, what do you think of that as far as, disrespecting milk?
Money.
I agree. Money.
Yeah, I think he probably has. He's a good businessman,
Skip, I approach that this way. There are very few absolutes. When you're young, you have the enzyme lactase to break down lactose in the milk. Our age, we don't have the masterful physiology to necessarily break it down. Vegan, listen, to be a vegan, a vegetarian, it's not easy to apportion your foods properly, get all the complete amino acids. So, if you really got your ducks in a row and you're really, you're putting it together where it's beneficial for you, or if you're more swayed by the politics of it, listen, your body, I will say this, your body doesn't care about your opinion, your religion, your politics, where you live, the slaughtering of bulls in Bangladesh. I love animals, by the way, so that's not what I'm saying. It only cares about science. So if you're eating healthfully, do you agree with that? I mean, what's your take on that?
A plant-based diet it can be good. I've done it. That video come out. I don't even know I can't remember the name of it. A little while ago, and everyone has jumped on the plant-based diet. But I think moderation, like the 80-20 rule, and eat small meals.
Yeah. That's again, it's your own personal health profile has to be attended to, and that's why, as a physician, I never ever give advice on the internet. People come in, they think, oh, you're all about, you just want to charge me. I go, well, no. Number one, two, I live in Connecticut, so I have to make money. So yes. Three, I will give information. I will not disseminate advice for you that's highly unethical. I don't know you. You probably don't know you well enough. Whatever you're telling me, you may be inaccurate, very dangerous, and it's sloppy, because if you're trying to get free information and only go with that, you don't value yourself. Listen, you got to go to the doctor. You got to go to someone you trust.
Good point.
And I get blood panels every 3 months. I have to pay for them. They're $800, but I need them, and I value the information I get. All right. So how did it turn out in California? You competed in some of the shows out there. What did Weeder think you could do ultimately?
I have no idea.
To this day.
Truthful, all I know is, I went out, I went out there and I trained and I competed. I always seemed to place out of the top 5, to be truthful. But I did win Best Poser at that time, which meant a lot to me. So I don't know.
You were happy you were a teacher. You took the right path because, bodybuilding is a profession.
Yeah.
You got to have something else, Robert, with another question. Fairlife milk is lactose free and 50% more protein and lactose reduced. I don't have a financial interest in promoting anything, but I will talk about anything here. Robert is lactose intolerant and can drink a jug of Fairlife. And the video that you're talking about is Game Changers. Yeah, I know about that. And that was kind of biased because it was subsidized by some of those companies. So there's a lot that you can refute in that. There might be some good information in there. What do you think of that, Skip? Anything as far as the lactose issue and being able to drink milk that doesn't affect that?
No.
Okay. Well, it works for Robert. Hey, listen, if you get back, I don't eat dairy. I don't consume dairy only because I don't like how I feel and how I look when I consume it. So that's an individual thing right there. I don't totally discount, you should never drink milk. So you're teaching, let's talk about your teaching career and all the kids you've helped and inspired. And some of them to this day because 34 years is a long span. How long ago did you retire? Was it like 10 years ago or something?
2006.
Okay, so right around when Mike Katz retired, same time.
Right.
He taught a long career, 35 years, I think. So you get some of your students, your former students, actually coming to you many years later to your facility for help with their health and their working out. What's that like? Does that happen often?
It's it happens. It happens, and it's the way I talk to my kids is, back when I taught, they were seventh graders. That's how I talk to adults. So nothing seems to have changed. It's I'm still teaching today.
A lot of friends.
Well, the kids were they were in decent shape back then. The kids that you see, would you say they're in worse shape now? I had Chef Andre Rush on here, and he spent 23 years in the military, and now his goal is to help correct childhood obesity. And he said over 80% of the kids now, high school age, could not pass the military physical test to even enlist. Do you see that?
Awful. It's sad because at the gym, I see more kids exercising now. Back in the 80s, I tried to get high school kids, and when I started my business in 86, Smart Body,
Right.
and I went to the colleges, everything, to get them on board and stuff. In the high school kids, I mean, I had the sports parachutes back then, everything.
What's a sports parachute?
To increase foot speed, you put it on.
Oh, okay, right. Oh, no kidding. Wow.
Yeah, and that was back in '85. But nowadays, more kids are into it now.
Hold on. To my understanding, and this is why I have you here. You're the expert. I could be wrong. I often am, but I'm right more than I'm wrong, I think. So it balances out to my advantage. Haven't schools en masse eliminated PE?
That I don't dare say, because of I know at us when I taught we had phys ed classes, and I know the high schools did. So did they have enough of them? That I don't know how many times a week. I don't dare say. But all I'm saying is, maybe I'm living in a bubble. But at the fitness factory, I have you see a lot of young exercising.
You do, like families and things like that.
Not families. These are just they're high school kids, and I get high school kids for clients, and they it's good.
Speaking of kids, what is the best? Because you see some of this controversy going back and forth. People just throwing things out there. Again, I don't know if it's just anecdotal what they see or if it's studies. I'm not a big fan of studies in general because who's behind the study and who's benefiting and who's getting screwed over. What's the best age for a kid, a young man, to start lifting weights without doing damage?
I've been asked that ever since I started training, people. You can train any kid. 3, 4, 5, 6 years old.
Really?
But you have to do body exercises, and you have to make it short, and you have to make it fun. Because if you try to train a youngster like an adult, they're going to say they have homework or they've got to take care of the canary or something, because they're not going to do it. But
because of the regimentation, or
it's too difficult. And parents will say, I've got a prepubescent kid that I want to gain weight, and they have no testosterone whatsoever. And
right.
But what you can do is you can, teach them coordination, balancing the bar and stuff like that, and they'll get stronger, and they'll build confidence.
What is the number one issue of difficulty that you find when you have I don't want to use elderly or geriatric, but let's say a client who is over 65, never trained or hasn't trained in years? What is the number one thing that's impeding them that you have to get around and defeat to get them to restore themselves?
It's a good question. I honestly think what impedes everybody is nutrition.
Nutrition.
Yeah, I mean, you are what you eat. and you can exercise, but if you're not eating properly, you don't see the results. So I would say for any age, that's the thing, that would impede somebody.
Yeah, I've heard that, because you'll hear some people on, the bro science, as they call it, and they'll come up, and this isn't what you're saying, so I'm not going against you on this, but you'll see things like, well, getting abs is, 10% workout, 90% kitchen. I mean, what study did that come from? But I will agree that as far as training goes, you're getting a lot of incidental, just activities of daily living. You're moving around. You're burning calories that way. So yeah, the lapse or lack usually is food. The portioning of proper nutrition. And how do you handle, the bad habits? People come in and they'll say things like, well, can I drink? Or, I smoke, or, I like to smoke pot here and there. Do you address that?
Usually the people that I'm training don't smoke. I mean, that would be a rarity, the smoking pot, maybe not so rare, and the alcohol, even less rare, but it's moderation,
Right.
Not smoking. I mean, but I mean, as far as everything else, it's moderation. And you set them up on the exercise program and nutrition program that, you don't want to have them, drinking. My father used to say, when I first started exercising, I'd train hard all week and then go out and party on the weekend. And he'd say, you're doing the 2-step, 1 step forward, 2 steps back, So anyway,
what makes you happiest in your head when you're sitting on that lovely deck of yours, looking over the water, the placid water in the morning and the beautiful colors, and you're thinking about going on the pumping iron boat? What makes you happier as far as achievement and the dent that you've impressed upon the world? All the kids that you've helped, or your endeavors in bodybuilding, and not just your the accolades. And you won Mr. World in 1986. That's a big one. That might be the crowning achievement. But the information that you've taken from that, and you've been able to disseminate it. So it's two things. You've helped all of these kids in school, but you've helped a legion of people, engender better health, which is really the true wealth through bodybuilding. Which one is weighted more, would you say? It might be kind of a hard one to answer, or maybe not.
When I'm sitting out there on the deck, waiting for the sun to come up to get that perfect, that golden hour, shot, I just think how blessed I am. It's not what I've accomplished. I don't think about the kids as far as that goes. But every day before I go down to the gym, whether it's in my Mustang or the truck, I'll say a little prayer, hoping that I'll make a difference in somebody's life today. So,
everybody I've talked to a man, even yesterday, Evan Centopani, we're all in business. Everybody's in business, even if you don't own a business. Like, what is your business? What are you all about? You might be an employee, but still, you've got to offer value somehow to become employed. Yesterday, my mother and I were driving, and there was a guy holding a sign. And my mother was flummoxed at first. He was holding a sign, "I will work for food." My mother right away takes out a 20. I go, no. She goes, "I'm giving him a 20. I go, no. So we discussed it. I turned the car around so he was facing my window, and we took $5. And before I gave it to him, I said, what's going on here? Why aren't you working? In about as nice a way as possible. And he explained it. And I go, well, what are you doing to move on? How did this happen? I asked him about a bunch of questions. And my mother thought it was kind of inappropriate. We gave him the $5, and we were driving away. And I said, Ma, let me tell you something. My mother is an angel. She's wonderful. So I'm not, she doesn't know any better in this case. I said, Ma, giving him $5 and just driving away, I think makes me feel good, okay, for a little bit. But having an interaction with this man is a humanistic thing to do, because we're getting into it, finding out what he's all about, not just, you know, a pit stop. Here's 5. Screw you. Okay, I'm driving off my new Challenger. I want to find out what it's all about, because, you know, maybe it shows him that somebody cares about his welfare. Plus, going back to Evan, I was saying, Evan, you know, in business, it's important to give more than you get. And I think you do this. You give more. And some people think, well, how do you make it if you're giving more than you get? Well, if you do enough of that on a wide swath, you look over your shoulder, the dust settles, you're gonna have enough money, or you're gonna have piles of whatever. But you have to, like you just said, you helped all these people, and now you're sitting on a lake. So, you know, I'm not saying you're the king of the industry or anything, but it worked out well, correct?
Yeah.
With that mindset.
My goal every day is, whenever a person comes into the gym, or anyone that I meet, that I give them a nice smile and say hello, whatever. I don't want that person to go at the end of the day saying nobody was nice to them. They won't say that. They say, well, it's that old dude there with the bald head.
Well, Skip, let me ask you a question. Do you ever have a day, because I've said plenty of times on here how I work things out. I wake up in gloom every day. I just do. It's just something that happens. That's when I ruminate in my head as soon as I wake up. So I have my little ritual. I do my mantra. I meditate. I take my cold shower. I only allow that to fester for maybe an hour or two. Then the rest of my day is free and clear. So when you walk into the gym and you give a smile, do you ever not feel like doing that? I mean, what do you do when you're not in that position?
I don't know. I've never been in that position.
That's hey man, you got to bottle that. You got to bottle that, and you got to sell it.
You know, like, hey, just another day in paradise. Let me tell you, the minute I get up in the morning, I am the way that I am right now. Of course, I go to bed early too, you know, but I am what I am. And
what was the big in your life? Because you're a man of achievement, and anybody who's risen to the heights, that's how you're looked at. I've talked to a lot. I deal with many people in my practice, and I get into it with people. I know everybody. I'm familiar with every single person. I don't use the word Facebook fam, because I only have 7 members of my true family. But I don't integrate with anyone unless I know a little bit about them. That being said, you've risen and you've achieved. What was the most difficult time of your life that you had to contend with?
Probably the death of my son. You know, drug overdose. I mean, you know, so.
Can you give us illuminate a little on that, or if you don't want to, that's okay.
No, it's just, you know, it's a disease, and you know, he just he went to rehab and all that, and come back, and just went back into his environment or whatever, and he just you know, he just tried to use whatever he used when he was doing it, and it was too much, you know. So, but it's you know, it's too bad, but it's, you know, it's life.
My sister's husband died 3 years ago, and I don't know if she'll ever get over it. You know,
Doc, everyone knows somebody that has succumbed to you know, to drugs.
Yeah, no, there's relevance in that statement with this situation. Absolutely. Listen, you're gonna be touched upon all kinds of things through your course on this planet. It's how you deal with it. I've got 5 questions for you, and then we'll go over anything you think I might have missed.
Okay.
And you can say anything you want. There's no surprises here.
Oh yeah, let's hear them. All right, go ahead.
You know, hey, listen, Skip. You know, I've said this. You know, I'm well known around here, and on my license plate, I've had this license plate since I was in high school. Dr. Dusa, DRDUSA. Yeah. So occasionally a person will walk up to me and will say, "Are you Dr. Dusa?" And I'm in my head, rapid fire. I'm like, do I want to reveal whether I'm just borrowing this car or not? So careful. I listen. I'm here to help. Somebody gets into loggerheads with me, I try to win them over. I don't want to have anybody that gnashes their teeth when they think of me. Question number 1.
Yes.
Dogs or cats?
Both. Oh,
You're a very magnanimous fellow.
no, I've got little Miss Sophia, Goddess of Wisdom, and then I got the Persia. In my post tomorrow on Facebook on my 91st Chronicle is going to be about my cat Persia.
Oh, so you do have a cat?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I thought you only had dogs. Okay.
No.
I hear. Is it a male or female dog? I hear the barking.
Yeah, that's Sophia. In my family, Michael, here's the chain of how it goes down. Persia the cat's number 1. Sophia's 2. And Skipper is number 3.
Skipper. I know who he's named after. Hold on. We got my friend Frank. I love Frank Ferry. Frank Ferry's here.
Hello, I know. Yeah, Facebook.
We're friends on Facebook.
Yeah.
Frank still runs his company down in Florida.
Yeah.
He's lost 100 pounds over the years. He's never going back. That's a great picture of him, by the way.
He looks great.
Yes. He's 72.
Yeah.
And he cleans up in all the Masters shows. So he's like, he's reminiscent of you, Skip. Somebody who has aged but not gotten old.
I follow him on Facebook.
Oh, do you? So hey Frank, how are you, man? I always like when Frank stops in. Frank reminds me of the goodness that is out there. All we see in the media is bad. Listen, most of the world is good. It's good. There's good stuff. Come on. Our next question, number 2. Okay, here we go. Question number 2: training in Venice or training in Maine?
Which was better?
However you interpret the question, you can answer it.
Training at Gold's Gym back in the 70s. I mean, my God, that was a dream come true for me, thanks to Ed Connors. And that was I used to be able to go back and then train in Maine. And everyone say, "What'd you learn? What'd you learn?" And the stuff, like that. So training in Venice. I mean, that was.
Skip, you know what, Mike? I asked Mike Katz when he first, because like you, he would go out for the summers because he had to teach.
Yeah.
And he said he would train with Arnold. Arnold liked training with Mike because Arnold hated training legs, and Mike loved training legs from football and whatnot. But I asked, I go, Mike, so what did you learn? What's different out there in the land of sunshine and bikinis and beaches? He said, listen, in Connecticut, we would trudge through these 3 or 4 hour workouts and we pace ourselves. I went out there, I would train with Arnold and Franco and all, Draper and Zane, they would train in a group, talk about history. It's like opening up, the encyclopedia of bodybuilding and you saw it. He said we'd get the same workout done, the same volume in an hour and a half. So he learned intensity. It was like, the weather was hot. You were sweating. You got it done. But do you have any photos that you took at that time in the gym? Do you have like a personal collection?
This is what I kicked myself. Frank Zane was a big proponent of photographing yourself.
Yes. I learned that personally. Yes.
Yeah. And I hated to have my photos taken. We did say, come down, we'll do a photo session and stuff. And Wayne Galash, I've done a lot of, he's photographed me a lot of times.
Yeah, and Wayne's part of the group here.
Wayne's a good guy.
Yes.
And he brought me down with Casey Vieta, but that's another story.
Well, we're going to talk about that story in a second.
And I wish I had more pictures back then. I can remember lying on the beach with Arnold, Lou Ferrigno, Franco, Frank Zane, and those guys. And I'm saying to myself, if my students could see me now, but I thought it was going to last forever. It didn't. So
I've asked some of the guys that, when you're on stage winning and Joe Weider's giving you a trophy, or you're making this movie with Clint Eastwood, or you're getting this big award, are you in the moment and you realize that this is like a real watershed moment? Or are you just kind of like, this is great, but you're still thinking, it's that old adage, I'm going to butcher it, but, it goes like, I was always waiting for the big moments and wonderful times to occur. And then I finally realized that they already did occur. I just didn't realize it,
I think that's more like it. At the time, you're in the moment, you know, and I don't know. I always thought this is gonna, you know, a lot of times I've got more second place trophies in like Glenn Nur won
Yes.
overall. That
AAU America,
Nur,
86.
that sounds right.
Yeah. Yep.
He won the Mr. World. I won my class. He won the overall.
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of him, and we're friends on Facebook now, and he was a deserving winner.
Oh, Skip, don't forget, he's a little younger than me. So he had you, but you had him by like 25 years or something.
Yeah.
And you're winning your class there. So listen, that's longevity right there. It proves the fact that you were able to do that at, you know, an advanced age compared to Glenn. Well, then that means other people can do it, right?
I remember going into a contest. It was in New Jersey at Paterson, and I don't even remember what the contest was. And I think I got, like, I remember walking into the place, and I had to have been in my 40s, you know, whatever. And I'm looking around at all the young people, and I'm saying, what the hell are you still doing this for? You know, and I had gone like 5 years placing out of the running, you know. And then after that, I went and got second place in the Mr. USA in St. Louis and stuff like that. And it started to turn around. But I've had a hell of a lot more defeats than I have wins, let me tell you. But I loved it.
Well,
you know,
listen, you had a 30-year span of competing. So why did you keep competing? Because you loved it.
I would have entered more contests if financially I could have done it. You know, I can remember one time there was going to be Sophia. There was a contest in it was September or something, and I want to say Acapulco. Weeder come up to me and he said, "Do you want to?" He said, "I'll send you down to the Mr. World contest," and I had to go back and teach.
Was this 1986?
No, this was the 70s.
Okay.
Yeah. And then another time I was getting ready to go back to school in September, and I had a chance to go on the Sonny and Cher, or the Cher show. I can't remember if it was just her.
Was that with Bill Grant? Because my friend Bill Grant, who's been on here, was on
there. There was 3 or 4 bodybuilders. I don't know if Bill Howard and maybe him, and I can't remember who went on the show, but I had a chance to do that. You know, the biggest thing, and this is a great story, and I don't know where the hell this came from, but
before you go on, Frank just wants to know, how old is Skip? I'm still having fun doing it. Frank, you're going to be 75, or you are 75?
We're going to be 76. Frank's a kid to me.
Hey, Frank, you know, he was a senior in high school when you were still in 8th grade. So,
yeah,
you know, that's my way. That's my delicate way of putting it. But, you know, just listen, man, you guys are luxuriating in a very youthful and vital space at your chronological number. I don't even like to use the word age, but yeah, you know, Frank is doing well. He's going to keep winning. I'm sorry, Skip.
Frank, keep up the good work. Boy, I'll tell you.
So what were you saying? So you know, what about that Casey Viator photo shoot? There was a funny thing with a mirror there, wasn't there?
Yeah. I got a call from Wayne Galash. It was in July of the 70s or whatever. And he said, "Would you like to fly down to Daytona? And I'll take some pictures of you with Casey." So he brought with him Linda, I can't think of her name, Linda.
Lind Johnson, Lynde.
Johnson, yes. She was Miss World at the time, and I think she did the black velvet. Next to me, I only like black velvet. Was that vodka or something like that? It used to be on the posters on the side of the highway. But anyway, and that's another story. But anyway, we went down there, and we went out on the beach in Daytona. We went to Arthur Jones's place, you know. And we went out on the beach, and Casey had to have a mirror to do the poses, because there was always a full-length mirror in front of us. and it was kind of funny, you know.
So wait a minute. Casey Viator, who just several years earlier had won the Mr. America at age 19, had to have a mirror on the beach in order because he couldn't feel the poses.
I guess, you know, I don't know what the reason was, but he's a good guy. I liked him, you know.
Was he?
Yeah.
Very strong, right? I mean, he's passed away.
Oh yeah, yeah. Louisiana.
Did you actually deal with Arthur Jones in DeLand? Did you have any dealings with him? He was.
Oh yeah.
Really?
He took me to his son's house one time. There was, I want to say, Wayne Galash went with us, maybe Casey. I can't remember who, but we went in this house in suburbia. It was a ranch style house, and I remember going in the door, and Arthur said, "I want to show you something." So he pointed to a room, and I went into the room, and it was pitch black, and all I could hear was these rattles. And I said, "What is this?" He flicked the switch on, and there was about 50 aquarium tanks with rattlesnakes in each one. He was trying to breed the most venomous snake ever. It then took us out and showed how a snake could eat a mouse. You know, oh God, you know. But I can remember Casey walked behind me, and I had shorts on, and the back of his sneaker or something hit the back of my leg. I'm telling you, I jumped because I just.
Well, you know, Skip, you know this, but our mutual friend Joe Means, great,
good buddy.
He spent some time down there, and he pulled some of that malarkey with this alligator cage.
Right.
But Joe's synopsis was Arthur Jones would do that because not only did he want men down there of superior strength and sinew, he wanted to test your mental countenance, whether you could take it, which is kind of nuts, you know.
Listen, he showed me his alligator tank.
Oh, he did.
Flash me, Casey. We go into this place, and I don't know how many alligators were there. And they had this wire mesh fence around it. And it was feeding time, so he was going to throw chickens over, you know, dead ones. You know, like that, yeah. So Wayne and I had this discussion about a year ago. I thought it was me, and he thought it was him, but I swear it was me. I crawled up the ladder to throw a chicken over into the thing, and he started shaking it on the bottom. I know, talk about trying to mess with you, you know. But I honestly think Wayne mentioned it, and I honestly think it was Wayne. It wasn't me, but it's so clear, you know. Of course, Lindy just stand there and she just giggled.
Really? See, I would, you know, I'm not a runner. I don't jog. I was never into that modicum of exercise, but I say I'm only running if I'm being chased or put in a dark room with snakes or, you know, dangling over like you know, the largest alligator in the world in his cage. And plus I'm not strong. You know, Jones would have kicked my ass right up because I couldn't do those workouts or whatever the hell crazy stuff he was doing down there. You know, his son started the hammer strength. That might've been his son. He went to his house. He started the Hammer Strength exercise company.
I did not know that.
Nautilus kind of broke up, but he was maintaining a part of it, and he started Hammer. So, you know, good equipment. So his son, you know, I don't know if he has the same, you know, mental druthers as his father. Let's go to the next one. This is very important for what we do here. Do you feel, you got to think on this. Do you, and I asked my mother this, and she says yes. Do you feel, my mother's 81, do you feel the same at 75 as, fill in a blank, 25, 35? Do you feel the same?
All right. Let me explain this to you. My father, Johnny, great guy. I am a clone of him. If the apple falls down the tree, I'm scraping on the bark. You're
talking about your father. You're talking about your father.
Yeah, my father.
Okay.
Great guy. He competed when he was 77 years old. He won the Mr. Florida Grand Masters class or something like that. He had a six-pack at 77. That's 70, yeah.
Wow.
And he was a personal trainer up until he was 89 years old. And
we got to stop you. Did he get into training because of you?
Yes.
Oh.
He at 44 years old. He was 44. and he saw me making gains, and he's saying he was a runner. He did the dynamic tension there on the beach, Atlas. He did a lot of that. He was lean and mean, not mean as a person. He was a great person, but
it sounds a lot like Lance Stranahan and his dad.
Yes.
His father was a golfer, world level golfer, and Lance was in the bodybuilding before him, and he ended up guest posing with his father.
Yeah, that's cool. That's I promoted the Mr. and Miss Maine contest, and my father won the Masters. My sister Penny competed in the bodybuilding, and I guess posed. That's cool.
Good. Yeah. That's a real family affair.
Yeah.
What is the number one element or treatise you've lived by to be who you are today and feel how you feel and function how you feel? What is the number one element that that's kind of a recurring theme throughout your life, how you've been able to maintain your health and energy and mind to be able to help people even to this day? What's the number one thing? Broad question, but I'm sure you could think of something.
Yeah. I can. Being nice to people is a biggie. Eating right, exercising, doing what you're supposed to do, and have a great wife like Dolores who's pointing at herself over there. Number one, having a great wife.
If you didn't have her by your side, would you have what you have now?
No, absolutely not. She owned this house before I got here 20 years ago, and
I wasn't talking about material things necessarily. That's part of it, but I'm saying
made me a better person. She really has. I used to be kind of dysfunctional, and now I'm the most functional person in the world. Thanks to her.
I'm going to tell you, with Denise, God made me stay single until I was 50.
Yeah.
And I chose poor relationships because they would keep me single.
Yeah.
And but he finally got tired of kicking me around because I guess it was fun. And now I have like you said, a much more functional life.
Oh yeah.
And I wouldn't have it without her. So I could agree with you there.
I'll tell you right now, Michael, being functional is a lot better than being dysfunctional.
Oh my God! Listen. When you're younger and you're training to get big and jacked, you kind of feed off that dysfunction and you think it's good because you're
70s, 70s, 80s, so it's different time. But I'm glad.
I've always said if you're in your 80s and you're still cantankerous and all pissed off and complaining about everything and you have no peace, I always say I hope you believe in reincarnation because better luck in the next life. It's too late.
Michael, we're only going this way once.
Yes.
And, you better make the best of it because there's no encores, nothing. This is it.
Nobody cares. And the only person who could truly care about you 100% and they still don't is your mother, because you spent 9 months inside of her. You can't get any more close to a person. But she still has to feed herself first, so she still puts herself first. So you got to take care of you. You have to take care of you. And the thing you always end with, I like it because I do the same thing in a way when I do a lot of my talks. I always say, all will be well, because listen, all the negativity we have out there in the world now, and you see it. I don't watch the news anymore, but people are so negative, and listen, that negative, you produce the negative chemicals, and it makes you unhealthy. And they say, why are you so positive? I'm like, well, listen, if I thought that way, I wouldn't get out of bed. And you say, it's just another day in paradise. Where does that come from?
Right there. I don't know. I'm always, people will say, have a good day. I'll say, I'm having a good life.
I like that.
I don't know. I have said that for, I don't know how many times I say it during the day. Life has been good. I've been blessed.
Since you still live around where you grew up, how many of your bodybuilding contemporaries, training partners, high school chums, college Marines, whoever you've known throughout all the different, let's say, 5-year spans in your life, how many are still around and thriving like you are right now?
Oh God, Marty Joyce. He's my financial money manager. So I got to say good things about him. He's the one I told you was a world powerlifting champ. In 1972, we're in Nashville, New Hampshire, entering the Mr. New England contest. I'm favored. So back in the day, you had to do a powerlifting. You did the powerlifting contest before, and then the bodybuilding show.
You were part of that. You had to do that. Yes.
Yeah. So Marty was the last one to lift. It was a deadlift. He weighed 172 and he deadlifted, I think it was 730 pounds, a world record. And he was going to enter the Mr. New England contest too. And the minute he did that, I said, I just got second place. And I did. Because powerlifting was a big deal back then. Especially
hey, listen, since he beat you, he doesn't mess up your money, you know? And Martin Luther King said it. It's wonderful to do good things without money. It's awfully hard. Now you got to tell me your one Steve Mahalik story.
Oh, I won the Mr. Maine. And Ed Connor said, you got to go to Columbus. Oh, I think it was Columbus. Oh, no, York. And enter the Mr. America. So all I had was arms and abs, you know, nothing else. And I weighed 172.
Hey, Skip, that's you know, I adopted the moniker as the best mediocre bodybuilder in the world. So that's not really, I have good arms and abs and really nothing else. And I know it, but I'm sorry, continue.
All right. So Ed and I are walking up to the auditorium, and I remember I hadn't seen any, I hadn't been out to Gold. I hadn't seen any professional bodybuilders or anything like that. So I'm out there. So who's the first one I see? The guy opens the door and greets Ed and I in. It's Steve Mahalik. Now his shoulders, to me, look wider than barn doors. And he had a little tiny head on his shoulders. And he won the contest, you know. I think I placed like 26 or something. I don't know. But, geez, what a rude awakening that was.
Well, you know, it's funny. I've got you here in this 72 Junior Mr. America. Yeah, you placed kind of low. And the winners were Pete Grimkowski, #1, and Steve Mahalik, #2.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Grimkowski was another one. And when Grimkowski, his first time he went in the America, no drugs, and he saw Mahalik won. And he didn't understand. And then he found out, oh, it was the stuff, you know, to get, you know, that big, you're so shocked, you know.
I remember why I shouldn't say this, but Pete used to use electro things to make his muscles. You know, you rub against each other what they're selling now and stuff like that. And I remember going into his apartment that he had. It was like a little kitchenette, a bedroom, and that was pretty much it out, because California guys would go 5 and 6 and sleep in the same place, you know.
Yeah.
So I was lucky I had Ed, you know, and he's, you know, he lived in the first time was Beverly Hills. I stayed with him. And then after that, I think it was the Marina Del Rey. I never stayed at Venice, you know, his latest place. But
well, Skip, listen, we've gone a long time. Hey, Pete Ash is a great member. He's lost 100 pounds, kept it off. Great stuff. I could listen all night. Pete, once you reach your goal and you're shredded, I'm going to have you on this podcast. And Skip agrees. He says, keep going.
Yeah, good job.
So, and he's also a teacher, by the way, Pete, just like you, Skip.
Nice. Good.
Yep.
Best profession. That's the one thing. If I had to do it all over again, you know, I don't think I'd change a thing, to be truthful.
Blessed.
Yeah.
Blessed.
Huh?
I don't think I would either. I would not get injured so much, although that's not really a choice.
Yeah.
You know, you know, the one thing they say about scar tissue, it's stronger than healthy tissue. It's not as functional, but got to get something good out of everything, Skip.
Plenty of it.
Any parting words to the people? Longevity, feeling good. You seem, you know, listen, I'm not with you all the time. but you come across as because again, a lot of the older people that I know are broken down, beaten. It seems like life disappointed them. And you don't want to, just like you said, life goes by quick, then you're done. But you seem to have solved that. Any final words for the people?
Be kind, be friendly, you know, stay safe and healthy, you know, and, you know, be my just another day in paradise.
Would you say I served you well enough on this podcast that if I come up and work out with you, I will not be meeting my doom?
I'm telling you, if you go to John Defender's, you better come up here to Maine.
If I go to John Defender's first, if I go to him first, there will be no more of me, perhaps. You know?
No, what I'll do is I'll push you to your, you know, whatever you're capable of doing. You know, everybody's different. You know, no one, you can't, you know, push a person like they're going to be Mr. America or they're, you know, because everybody is different, and you have to, you know, assess that. And you know,
I like that you take that approach. There's too many people putting out cookie cutter programs.
Oh,
we didn't talk enough about your own training. Now somebody just brought it up, and they want to know you can answer it or not answer it because it's do you take TRT, testosterone replacement therapy?
I do.
And how long have you been doing that? Does it make a difference? Does it help your training?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think it does. I have it makes me feel good. The amount I'm taking is a very small amount, and I go through an endocrinologist, so it's not enough to build you know, big muscles or anything like that.
Do you get your do you know what your values are? Your total T or any of the measurements? You know what number where your testosterone levels are?
No, but I know that they get down really low if I don't take it. You know, so
what made you start, and what age were you, Skip, when you started?
Well, when you get up in your 40s and 50s like that, your testosterone level goes down. Your muscle mass decreases. Your fat cells you know, seem to increase in size. So that's the you know, the time, you know, I started.
You and I both know that. Number one, don't listen to the media. To this day, I had Rick Collins on here, attorney Rick Collins, and he deals, you know, he's the lawyer for the supplement industry and steroids, defending people and all that. Very well versed in the nuances. I had Rayhan Jalali on here. He's one of the guys that develops a lot of the supplements for like EAS and all these companies. Great guy. He trains all the superhero bodies for Hollywood. But these guys really know their stuff. And they'll agree that the media really, really makes a mess of things, and they skip. They'll say things like steroids cause cancer. Like, what the hell does that mean?
No.
Chronically low natural levels of testosterone in the male form lead to a host of sicknesses and dysfunctions and cancers and heart defects, diabetes, intestinal problems. So it's important to keep your values at least within normal, and then maybe even higher, like the same levels you had as when you were younger. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. 100%. And that's why I go to an endocrinologist. They know what they're doing, and you know, I'm every 6 months I have a blood profile, you know, and you know, like that. So, you know, would I like to take all kinds of CCs and get huge and stuff like that? But it ain't going to happen, you know. It's,
we'll have to dig up the Grimkowski protocols.
Yeah,
I don't listen. I don't even like to really put it out there because young people watch and then they get ideas, and you know, one thing, people have to learn how to think on their own, obviously. So finally, Skip, what do the oncoming years bring for you? Because you're young, you're going to live another
100 years at least.
Another 40 years. So you're not. You maintain your youth and your mental ability. So why not engage in new projects?
Well, my father set the bar. he trained people till he was 89. And so I've got that to he was tough. That's a high bar, you know, like that. But I'm just keep on doing what I'm doing. And I'm big on photography now. And I do want to travel more. I want to take go to my wife Dolores to take a lot of pictures because we've got a beautiful state vacation land, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Do you go to contests anymore at all?
I do. I've been to a few contests around here, and I've been to MC. And in this last one, the IFBB PA, I was I got the some award for all my contributions. I guess Wayne D'Amelio was there.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It was good. So I'm helping them promote that federation.
Nice. Yeah, Wayne's gonna be on the show.
Yeah. Tell him I said hi.
What's that?
Tell him I said hi.
I will for sure. Absolutely.
I entered his first contest.
You entered his first contest?
Yeah, and I thought I won it. And when he was up here in Maine, he told me, no, you got second. I won my class, I guess. See, another one. I won my class, but not overall. And I can't think of who he said won it, but he was right. You know, I was disappointed.
Who was your toughest competition at the Holyoke shows, Mountain Park?
Oh God, Bob Klez was there, Tony Roma.
Yep, remember all those guys were all in pumping iron.
Yeah, Dick Modulewski, is it that how you pronounce his name?
Don Modulewski.
Don, that's right. All great guys. Elliot Gilchrist. I think the picture that you.
Yeah, he's in there. Yeah, he's actually he competed in a couple of shows that Katz and I ran here. He's still around.
Oh my God, he was like 50 years old then.
Yeah, he's not. He's in his 90s now. Still trains.
He's still alive then, huh?
Yeah, he's still alive.
Longevity.
Yeah, that's longevity. One final question: did you ever see Mike Katz guest pose or in action posing?
I entered. It's the Jay Cutler now.
Yes.
In Boston.
Yeah, great show.
Yeah, and he's. I didn't see him, and so he's announcing me. And when I walk out on stage, he goes nuts because then he recognized who I was, you know. And it was
Nice.
When he announced me, he mentioned Pumping Iron and friend of his, and it was really, really nice, you know. That's
listen, I just want to say that you are a gem that you're here with us. Frank just we're getting all these questions now. Well, see, the wonderful thing about what I do is I can do what I want. We can go as long as we want. Skip, are you in Maine? Do you ever run across Mtfu? Did you say you're diabetic? I am, but totally under control.
No, Mike Souza, no, and I'm not diabetic. My wife sets up nutrition programs for diabetics. So no, right now I'm healthy.
Frank, when I was talking earlier, I was asking Skip because his wife masters the tenets of nutrition and she's accredited. They can take on clinical problems. You see, I consider training healthcare. You know, I consider it something that, you know what I mean. I mean, it's very important. You're helping a person change their body. So they're able to attend to the difficulties that arise when people have those problems. But no, he himself does not have that. But as I was saying, Skip, like I say to our guests, and they're all handpicked and they're all very accomplished and cherished and respected. I'm glad you exist. I'm glad you're still out there. You're still helping so many people. And you're one of the elements, people that makes America great. So I'm glad you're here. And that's why I like to talk to all these guys while they are still here, because, you know, now there are no more magazines. You know, I have to be able to hold one. You know, this is from 1980. You know, I keep them around.
Am I in it?
You probably are. You're probably in it somewhere. I'll have to thumb through it later. But no, so I want to thank you. Thank you for your time. I am going to come up. I will, one of those things that probably I'll plan within a week or come to the gym, work out, have some lobster. What else is Maine known for up there? What's the best thing to eat? I'm hungry right now, so that's what I'm thinking of.
Lobster. I'll take you to the finest restaurants. You'll be fine.
The finest. But I need somebody to, I don't like to work too hard for my food, like cracking the shell. Maybe already shelled, perhaps.
Oh, yeah, we can do that.
Anything can be done. Hey, Skip, I want to thank you again, and I want to thank everybody for being here. Tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have Gunther Schlierkamp, the only bodybuilder to defeat Ronnie Coleman during his 8-year Olympia run. Next week, we have Evan Centopani, one of the top IFBB pros today, and he's really, really, really good with cooking and nutrition and digestion. You could be eating a lot of good food. If you're not digesting it, you might as well just take the food and throw it right into the toilet. Forgive me. And we also have John Meadows, one of the top IFBB pros, and he's probably one of the top, I don't like this word, but this is what they use, top gurus. Everybody seeks him out for the keys to what they're lacking in order to continue on to the road to success. So we have all these top level guys, Skip being one of them. I want to thank you again, my friend.
Hey, Doc, you know all those guys you just mentioned, you know what they have in common?
What's that?
They could beat me in a contest.
Oh, yeah. No, listen. Look, all I could say, I'll go a step further. I stand next to them. I look like a tattoo on their shoulder. So
remember, when you're standing next to those big guys, move towards the camera. Arnold told me that. You'll make you look bigger.
Well, just make sure those aren't advices that you're following from that guy, Hey, Skip, I've got to go. I'm going to shoot you a message. Frank Ferry just said, Skip, thanks again. And I'll put this on your timeline. It'll be on my YouTube channel. It'll be all over the place.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It was great talking to you, Doc. Looking forward to seeing you up here in Maine.
It did my life better. Thanks to Dolores.
Yeah.
Let that little dog out and run and get some fresh air. She's going to bite you in the calf or something.
No, she's the most lovable thing that you best dog I've ever had.
How could she be anything else in your household?
There you go. Just another day in paradise.
Go forth and conquer and do it in paradise. All right, Skip. Have a great night. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, man.